Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're struggling to conceive, the last thing you want is vague advice. You need real answers and a plan of action. That's where the book of Getting to Baby comes in. No matter what obstacles you are facing in your journey to parenthood, Getting to Baby is aimed to help you shorten your time to pregnancy, avoid costly fertility treatments, and if IVF is necessary, increase the odds that it works. That's why we're so glad to be chatting on IG Live today with the author of Getting to Baby, Judy Simon. Judy provides medical nutrition therapy in the areas of reproductive nutrition, PCOS, and disordered eating. During this live, we are going to discuss trying to conceive when you have PCOS, nutrition and fertility, the role of gut health play in conception, and more. So I.
Jenna.
Here you are. Hello. Hi, Judy. Thank you so
Great.
much for joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here today. It's a really, really rainy day in Seattle. And so it's so nice to be able to connect with people. I feel like I'm just stuck on my computer right now. So it's awesome to be able to talk to you today. And I'm so honored to be one of your guests.
Thank you so much. And I'm always loving having an RD on our IG Live.
Fellow ID,
Yes,
right? That's very
ID.
cool. Very cool.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a fertility and reproductive health dietitian.
Yeah, so I've been a dietitian for a long time, and then I went on my own personal journey when it came to fertility. I finished graduate school, life was going well, I was in a wonderful marriage, and you think in your 20s you're just going to get pregnant. And I was one of those unexplained fertility cases. And this is a while ago before we had quite the technology and genetic testing and things that we have now. So my journey was about 7 years, and I was working in clinical positions and things like that. And I worked with great doctors. And finally, with the help of assisted reproductive technology, we did conceive. I did conceive my daughter, who is now over 30 years old. And here's a part that really kind of connects to you on the environmental part. We never figured out why. It wasn't male factor. I had regular periods. I didn't have PCOS. So I was so happy to have one child. I thought, great. And then we moved to Seattle, totally different environment. Okay. So I grew up in the Midwest where, we had a lot of, um, how can I say it, polluted water, PCBs, and I ate all that fish. And even where we were living in Michigan, my husband worked for a major chemical company in research. And there was always a part of me. And then, we moved to Seattle with a 6 months old, and I just thought I'd never have another child. Okay, this is good. I have one. And do you know that when she was 10 months old, I was shocked that I was pregnant. And I think, is it something different in the environment? Like, who knows? And I don't know to this day. So fast forward, I took off some time to raise my kids. And I decided when I went back into the working world, that I really wanted to be on the outpatient side. I really wanted to do counseling. I'm very interested in women's health. And I was so fortunate that there was a job open at the University of Washington. I met my co-author, Angela Thayer, who's a fertility doctor, a reproductive endocrinologist, and I started learning about PCOS. And I was just overwhelmed because it wasn't something I learned about in school. And I would see these women who had irregular cycles go on the pill, come off the pill. They had all these side effects. They weren't getting their periods back. They weren't getting pregnant. They had insulin resistance. They were hirsued. And it really opened up my career to, I wanted to learn everything about reproductive endocrinology and how it overlapped in nutrition. So I felt like I had to join the fertility doctors. Do you know what I mean? So I got very active in American Society of Reproductive Medicine. I had the fertility doctors come and really teach the dietitians what is PCOS. And a lot of folks don't realize that it wasn't until the 90s that they really had the data that showed the role of insulin resistance in PCOS. We used to just think that was a hormone thing, but it's really your hormones and your endocrinology and your gynecology. So that really became my path. I continued to work in women's health at University of Washington, where I still work today. I'm on faculty there. And then I also started to practice mind body nutrition almost 20 years ago. And I said, you know what? I just want to work with fertility patients and women with PCOS and the intersection of the eating disorder. So those became my interests. And yeah, that's kind of where I got started in all of this.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Is that the reason you started thinking about how to get a message across that
I
you
really
wrote the
did.
book Getting to Baby?
I really did. And, you know, and before getting to baby, because let me tell you, it takes a long time to write a book. I don't know if you've written one yet, but you probably should. But so when I started my private practice, I kept seeing these amazing women and I would see great results. Like you didn't have to do anything harsh. They could eat more fruits and vegetables and more whole grains and more fish and do things like reduce exposure to endocrine disruptors. I was working with a one-on-one and one-on-one. And I kept wanting to like match them up. I kept thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if I had 5 of these women? So Dr. Thayer and I, she was my medical director, and her at one of the fertility clinics in Seattle, you know, they gave us their staff room on a Saturday. And for 12 years, I taught on Saturdays food for fertility classes where the women literally came together, maybe 12 women for 6 to 7 weeks. And each week on a Saturday morning, we learned about nutrition, but then we cooked. So if it was greens week and we were learning about kale, we'd make massage kale salad and maybe a soup with kale and different greens. Or if it was grains week, we were making dishes with quinoa and farro. So instead of telling people, just lose weight, just eat healthier, we were actually doing it, setting goals. And then my favorite part is we would always walk at the end, rain or shine, you know, weather's pretty mild here, but we would take a walk and that gave the women a chance to do some movement after they ate and get to know each other. And so as we were doing these classes, we collected the stories. We always said, let's write a cookbook. But then Dr. Thayer, my amazing, co-author, she really got involved in lifestyle medicine. She was, let's make this bigger. Let's take all these classes we've been doing and let's put them in a book because we're only seeing 12 women at a time. And during COVID, we did switch to a virtual platform, which was really fun because the women could cook in their kitchen and I would put them in chat room. It wasn't quite the same as being, you know, all together, but it was really pretty good and we got good feedback. So that gave us the idea for let's give some guidance on lifestyle that it could be in everybody's public library. Because as you know, you have so many guests that talk about fertility. Less than half the states require insurance to cover it. So there's a lot of people, IVF, it's not in their wheelhouse. They can't afford it. They don't have the money. So I want someone to be able to at least be able to access a book from their public library that would help them with how could lifestyle help improve their fertility.
Even if they need to be on IVF later, that this will help them up their chance.
Right. And so definitely a lot of the people we have worked with, by the time they come to see me, they're like, hey, I'm doing an IVF cycle in the fall. I want to be healthier. And I don't know if your listeners are aware, but about 50% of the women who get pregnant didn't try. Do you know what I mean? They were unplanned pregnancies. And when you're in the fertility world, it's hard to believe. You're like, how does anybody get pregnant? So the issue there is we like those women to be healthier when they do conceive. You would like them to know they should be on a prenatal, they should be eating fruits and vegetables, they should be avoiding endocrine disruptors, right? We want to know the head. So to me, this is a good book. If your OB said, hey, if you're thinking about pregnancy in the future, this might be the book that you want to, you want to pick up and read, right? But for those women who are struggling, we're hoping that this gives them the positive guidance because as you've read in the book, did you like the stories we had in the book about the women who, made lifestyle changes and share their journeys?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is amazing. So you mentioned the PCOS. And what are some insights that you could share from Getting to Baby about PCOS and fertility?
Right. So PCOS is probably the most common diagnosis why a woman even goes to a fertility clinic. She's not ovulating. She's tried for a year. She's still not getting pregnant, no matter what age she is. I see these women, 25 years old, going to a fertility clinic and 42 years old. So with PCOS, it's not really age per se, right? They're not ovulating, right? So the connection there with PCOS is a large percentage, probably about 80% of these women have a degree of insulin resistance, even the women that are thin and smaller bodies. They could have a BMI of 21 or they could have a BMI of 41. So what doctors used to say, oh, go lose weight. Because there was a study that women who lost 5% of their body weight, they started to ovulate. And some of it will. If they lose weight, they will ovulate, but it's not a guarantee. Or some women come into the office like, well, I already lost 5%. I'm still not pregnant. So that's not the best advice. So where food and nutrition and lifestyle comes in for PCOS is we can help women understand how to have a healthier lifestyle. So you ask specifically how food can help. So example, how much fiber a woman is eating. So some women are so obsessed with calories, carbs, whatever. I go, if you're going to count something, be curious about how many grams of fiber are in your diet. Like I had a woman tell me the other day, she says, oh, I only like 6 grams of fiber in my diet. I go, well, you go a quarter of the way there. That's like nothing.
That's
Right?
nothing.
That's like no plant food, right? And we want them to get it for food. And so we do care. We have a whole chapter about gut biome and fiber and everything, because what we find is with women with PCOS, often they have very high estrogen levels, right? So when they're eating more fiber and it's easy stuff, broccoli or oatmeal, chia seeds, from different sources, what they actually do is when they have a healthy gut biome, there's cells in the lining of their intestine that actually help remove some of the excess estrogen. It's like nature's own helper, right? And then a lot of the women with PCOS, as I mentioned, insulin resistance. Well, when you have more fiber in your diet, I like to tell women it's nature's Ozempic or it's nature's GLP-1, right? If you're eating barley or you're eating oats or farro, compared to maybe, fishy crackers or something that don't have fiber, the plant food will have a slower glucose rise, less insulin would be needed. And then the other thing is there are some supplements that also can be helpful. Like we know the inositol and berberine can be helpful, but I remind women, guess what? We make inositol. We have berberine in our, not berberine, I'm sorry, we have inositols in our food. So let's say if you're eating white beans, fruits, soba noodles, increase those. So that's where people get confused because they're often told, eat low carb, eat keto. And I'm like, ooh, watch out.
Yeah.
You're cutting out the good stuff. So we want to emphasize, and I think we do this well in the book, that, if you have PCOS or for anyone, you need whole grains, you need fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, and that soy is actually really good for fertility. Eating, right? Tofu, edamame, those foods have a lot of fiber. They have phytoestrogen, which is actually helpful for PCOS. It improves biomarkers. And as you probably know, in the Earth study, they found that women going through IVF who ate soy actually had a reduction in the amount of endocrine disruptors that were found in their system. So, another little benefit. So part of the recommendations we make is, eating more beans, more grains. So really, if someone has PCOS, getting the baby is perfect. And I would also say for the women who have endometriosis, which often they don't even know they have it, and we talk about maybe up to 10% of women have PCOS, probably up to 10% of women have endo. And think about how many have both. They have both of those. So they're going to do well with a plant-centered diet. It does not mean they have to be vegan. It does not mean they have to be strict vegetarian. Because in fact, fish is found to be a predictor of healthy conception. So many studies have shown 2 to 3 servings of fish a week, like our beautiful Northwest salmon and tuna. But we do tell them about mercury too, because we are concerned about contaminants. And there are safe fish charts that you can get that really say, like, based on the weight of women, how many ounces. So like, for example, the bottom feeder like halibut, you might only want to have once a week, but something like a safe salmon, you can have 3 times a week, right? The small fish, like the sardines and the anchovies. So we see a lot of benefits. And I think it's for a lot of reasons because fish is anti-inflammatory. So that helps inflammatory conditions like PCOS and endometriosis. And also because when you're eating fish, that's maybe your protein for the meal. So maybe you're eating that in place of a fattier meat,
Mm-hmm.
or a processed meat. So ideally, like what we like to tell women with PCOS and the folks trying to get pregnant is that if you have fish 2 or 3 times a week, and then maybe you have some plant-centered meals with beans or tofu or edamame, then if you occasionally want to have red meat or lean pork or chicken, you'll still get some of the nutrition benefits from those, but you're getting so much more boosting benefits from the plant-centered and the fish. Does that kind of make
Oh,
sense?
yes. Oh, yes. This is a loaded was great
Oh,
information, and you
good.
kind of answered my next
Oh,
question
okay.
too, because I was going to ask you about the role of gut health playing in
Oh,
fertility. So you pretty much like answered it. The fiber really matters. Yeah. Now
yeah.
what could your poops tell you too?
Right, right. I ask everyone about that. How often do you poop? It tells a lot. So we know that if a woman is having regular bowel movements every day, every other day, she's not constipated, her gut's feeling pretty good, she's probably getting adequate fiber, right? And when she's getting adequate fiber, that's going to help with her insulin resistance. It also helps with your immune system because you
Mhm.
have to have enough fiber. That's the prebiotic, right? That feeds the good gut
Feed the good.
biome, right? So poops do tell us a lot. So when I have someone who's constipated and they're on a low carb diet, we're going to work gently on fiber, gently, more fluids and things like that. Now, sometimes people go too fast on the fiber. They go from like 0 to 90 and they're like, oh my gosh, Judy, I'm bloated, right? And that's why I think it could be helpful to work with a dietitian.
Mhm.
Sometimes a patient does have irritable bowel syndrome or they have
Mhm.
inflammatory bowel
Mhm.
disease. And maybe they can't eat onion and garlic, but we can
Right.
help them with which softer fibers might be
Yeah.
helpful. And some people are getting their fibers like from bars and like
Mhm.
kind of artificially chicory and inulin that's put in cereals and bars. And some of those are FODMAPs can be tough to
Yeah.
digest. So like they're up in the numbers, but they're not easy to digest. So kind of the food-based ones are easiest. But that's a really good question. And even if you think about egg and sperm health, if you have a healthy gut and your immune system is good and you're decreasing inflammation, it's really going to resonate, I think, throughout the body. It's going to have the
It makes
benefits.
so much sense. You also mentioned about weight, losing weight, and then also you tease that you tackle BMI in getting to baby. So, which you admit, it's a controversial topic in
It is.
fertility.
It is. And when I first started, I'll be really honest, 20 years ago, doctors were sending me patients because they'd be like, oh, this woman, her BI is under 40, see her for weight. And I quickly learned that, you know, not everyone in a larger body is eating too
It's
much, right? It's
Mhm.
such a complicated field. And
Mhm.
we now have data, and this is really important in the fertility world because the fertility clinics often have cutoffs for IVF.
Yes.
They have a cutoff of 40 of BMIs in our region, except for, I will say, University of Washington, because we're in a tertiary hospital that um, serves a broader community. But so most of the reason for that cutoff, two things. It's number one is anesthesiology. So when they're doing
Mhm.
IVF in an outpatient clinic, there's limits to what the anesthesiologist will do. Although if you look at the data, it is so incredibly rare to have an anesthesiology event during IVF.
Mhm.
Okay. And then it's also, I'm going to say, the talent of the reproductive endocrinologist, because when someone has a bigger habitus or belly, it is harder to get
Harder.
the eggs out of
Yes.
the ovaries, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. So they have done studies and they presented at ASRM, and I know UW is going to be, University of Washington is presenting a study where the bigger tertiary hospitals are looking, and what they're finding is you can have a BMI of 30 or 60, and they are finding the same outcomes if you have the type of clinical setting
Mhm.
where anesthesiologists, maternal fetal medicine, dietitian from everyone's working together and we treat all people. Because how can we deny someone
Yeah.
having a baby? You know, and you could have a BMI of 40 and be very healthy. So where that original data came from is when
Mhm.
people do lose weight, if they lose some visceral fat, that may be enough to help them to start to ovulate, but it's not a guarantee.
It's not
So
guaranteed.
I think that my philosophy is to help people at all sizes. I have women that are over 300 pounds. They go through IVF. They have very successful cycles. They have very successful pregnancies. In fact, their OBs keep saying, gosh, I thought you'd have high blood pressure. Gosh, I thought you'd have gestational diabetes. And they don't
They don't.
because they started healthy. So I think we have to treat each woman as an individual and we have to take weight bias out of that, right?
Absolutely.
So yes. So, but, and then women, and it's okay if they say to me, well, Judy, I am fat. And I use that word only as in size, not, as a descriptor, just like we say thin. They'll say, I am fat. I want to be healthier. And yeah, I wouldn't mind losing weight. And I'll tell them that's not going to be our focus. But usually, if you get more active, you sleep better and you eat better, for most people, it will improve their body composition and they may see a decrease in visceral fat. Does that make sense to kind of say it's not a
Totally.
guarantee the way you have to look at the whole health of the person and take away the weight bias and focus on their health? Like my patients, their hemoglobin A1C improves, their blood sugars are better, their hypertension is better. That's going to help them to conceive, and that is going to help them to have a healthy pregnancy, that's the end goal. That's what we want to get to, a healthy pregnancy.
Absolutely. It seems that fertility and food are just so connected. I mean, food is connected to everything, but especially when it comes to fertility. So you mentioned about fish, you mentioned about fiber and plant-based food like soy and edamame was good
Yeah,
phytoestrogens.
is it
So
great?
what are anything else that
Yeah,
a person should be
right.
incorporating into their diet?
So, as you go through our chapters, you saw how we had lusty legumes. We had all those chapters. We couldn't just tell people eat this, eat more of this. We wanted to help them. And I think what's really unique about the book is we kind of give you a little bit of the science, right? But then we put in a lot of culinary tips. And so Angela Thayer, my co-author, during COVID, couldn't stop learning. She actually became a certified vegan chef because she wanted to get more cooking skills and got board certified. So she's now triple certified by the College of Lifestyle Medicine, right?
Yes.
So we really wanted to up the culinary side, which we were doing in the classes. We wanted to tell people like, hey, not only eat vegetables, how can you do it easy? So we put in recipes, we put in cooking tips to make it easy. And then each chapter had some recipes. And then we included like that 6-week blueprint where you could kind of say, I want to work on one thing at a time. Because some people, when you're going through the fertility world, people are saying, okay, these are all good things. Do acupuncture, go do your fertility yoga, come to clinic 3 times a week. You have so many things like to do, but we all have to eat. So, for example, if I have a patient, I've had patients like this, and they look at me and go, Judy, I'm not going to cook. We just don't. It's true. There are people like that. We have a lot of tech couples, they don't cook, and they go, well, this is what we do. And they tell me how their life is and where they go out to eat and all. And we're lucky we have a lot of good restaurants and like, kind of places like Whole Foods and places that have hot bars and cold bars. And I really walk them through the day. And the big thing that I said is adding more plant food to everything they did. Like if they were ordering out Asian food, get one dish that was all vegetables. Get one that had protein. Try to go maybe for brown rice, a little less saucy, and what were things they could do. But in the book, we kind of talk about like you mentioned, we talk about the ancient grains. We try to introduce people like, hey, try quinoa, try farro, try millet. You might really like the taste and the texture. Try black rice, expand. But we wanted to make it things that you could find in regular grocery stores. We don't want to make it like you had to send away for it or it would be really hard to get. We talk about fruits and the antioxidants. And something I haven't mentioned while we're pushing all these plans is we've talked about being anti-inflammatory to make um, um, a healthier place in your body. But we care about those gametes, right? The developing follicles and the sperm. And so we know women have about a window. We have all our eggs, right? We're born with all our eggs. Okay. But we have about a 90-day window when that next follicle is getting ready. And now we're finding that there can be an influence on the follicular fluid as far as antioxidants, right? And we're finding more help from food than from supplements. There are a few supplements that have been shown to be helpful, but you can't go wrong with food. You can't go wrong with eating peaches and strawberries and blueberries unless you're allergic to them, right? So we say like spend that 3 months eating more healthy. It's going to help the egg, the quality of the egg and the environment and the gamete. Those guys are so lucky every 78 days. They're making new sperm. They have another chance. And when you talk about that exposure, the fruit and nut study showed that men within 14 weeks, if they didn't even change their diet and they ate 60 grams of nuts a day, okay, so they got all the selenium and magnesium, and they got a lot of important minerals, they improved their sperm quality. We don't have quite the data like birth, but we know they improve their sperm quality. So if you think about the antioxidants helping with the sperm quality and gamete quality, that's where the fruits and veggies come in. And then a lower glycemic index, that's also going to help with the uterine environment too, like more anti-inflammatory. I hear a little one back there. Is that your little one?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's wonderful. How old?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
She's getting a little fussy.
Oh, that's all right.
It's all good.
Well, we won't talk too long. We'll make sure she's a. So then the idea is not only do we help to get these women pregnant, they are just still ready to go into pregnancy because the NHANES data shows that about half the women starting their pregnancy are deficient in like everything. The only thing they get enough of is like grains, but they're usually more more refined grains. They're not getting half their fruits and vegetables. They're low in choline. So we recommend if women, do eat animal products to include eggs because choline is not in most of the prenatals or not enough. So I always say, hey, can you eat 3 to 7 eggs a week? And here's some easy ways to do it. Great source of protein, right? So we want to have green vegetables every day. That's how you get your folate natural. We still want it in your prenatal because the data is supportive. Can you improve egg quality in a woman as she ages? Yes. So I work with a lot of women with diminished ovarian reserve, and as women age, we have less eggs and the quality is lower and higher miscarriage rates, right? So I work with women and they know they're going in with lower percentages. And I've seen women where the first IVF retrieval was really poor, they had diminished ovarian reserve, and then they really focused on lifestyle, and then they had a better retrieval the next time. They got more. So it's never going to hurt. There's no bad side effects of eating healthy, right? So that's important. And then, we could have written a whole nother book on the boosters and the disruptors as you talk about. And I want to tell you how I learned about your company. I was at a fertility conference, and I forget her name, but there's a reproductive endocrinologist, I think from Colorado, and she had done your test and she shared it with everyone. And I was just fascinated because I've been talking to people about endocrine disruptors for years. I show them my water bottle and we talk about bisphenol A and phthalates and cleaners with less toxicity and all, and what you could do in half-lives. But I'm really glad to say that in American Society of Reproductive Medicine, the endocrine part is really taking a bigger stage and a bigger presence. And I'm going to speak at the conference this year, just talking about whole foods and IVF. But there's several speakers talking about endocrine disruptors. So they're listening. They're here.
That is amazing.
It is.
That is.
You should feel really good about it. I hope you can go to the conference sometime because it's in Denver this year. So we have a chapter just on, I don't want to call them detox because I think that's scary. So we use the word disruptors. And that's where we talk about alcohol, cannabis, caffeine. And then we try to just highlight the important ones that we thought in 3 months' time, boy, you could reduce BPA, you could reduce phthalate. And that's one of my favorite stories of Gabriella, because literally in this room, he dumped out like, I don't know, 25 hair care products that all had scents and chemicals in them. And they were on their one embryo left in their 40s, IVF. And I went through them all. And her husband goes, okay, I'm going to go with you. We'll find products that work. She changed her diet. Her diet really needed some help. She added in fish. She ate better. And they have a healthy child.
That is
So
amazing.
and she was someone that her hair was everything. I mean, this was a big sacrifice for her. And, think about the control people lose when they go through fertility and someone says, stop dyeing your hair with that. Stop doing the things that you love to do to be a pretty woman. But we did it and it wasn't that bad. So that's why we talk about this disruptors and we talk about the boosters, sleep, stress, movement, because those things are so important. So those are things that we try to include. And then lots of recipes because we want people to just really feel like if they can try a new thing every week, that they can definitely get some help from that.
That is amazing. I also want to add, if someone working with you, changing their lifestyle,
Mhm.
incorporating these diet tip and then cooking their own food, not only they increase their, fertility, improving their nutrition,
Mhm.
they're actually detoxing, or if we're not using
That's
detoxing,
okay.
decreasing the disruptor at the
They are. They are, and people don't realize, and
Mhm.
I learned this from being a speaker at American Society of Reproductive Medicine with one of the lead researchers on bisphenol A in animals, that when it's in your body, you pass it on 2 more generations. And she showed the data. And I keep thinking about how long it took me to get pregnant and changing an environment and things that I incidentally change. And it's like even PCOS, we don't even know the origin, how people get it. And there are theories that they're looking at is it exposure to something during
True.
in utero?
Mhm.
And so I want people to continue to decrease their exposure. And exposure always sounds like take away. Exposure also means the good stuff. We want you
Yeah,
exposed to the
exactly.
antioxidants from your food because we want to have the healthiest children. I mean, there's theories about obesity, even with these women, like, is there more of a genetic predisposition, the epigenetics for chronic disease? So in that first 1,000 days, if we are helping preconception in that first year, if we are improving your nutrition, that might have such a positive impact
Absolutely.
on the genetics of the next one. So I feel like we're planting the seed literally, figuratively, to help people get pregnant. And I mean, honestly, this book, I swear, it's the capstone of my career. I just feel like if it could be in every library, if it could be in every OB office, I'm working on it. I'm not a huge social media influencer. I'm really a practitioner. I'm seeing patients 5 days a week, but I am training and mentoring a lot of dietitians. When I started this, I don't know, there were like 3 of us that I knew
Yep.
of that even knew anything about fertility. And now there's a lot of really good people getting involved. I love the colleagues I work with. So I think it's an exciting field, but I really want to leave the message that I don't want to scare people into like, your diet's bad. It's like, hey, let's take you where you
Let's work on
are
it.
and let's see
Mhm.
what things we can add. And you can use vinegar and baking soda for cleaning and save a boatload of money and get rid of all those, I'm always on my husband too, like get rid of all those chemicals you don't need, that really can be harming us. So I think this topic, and that's why I was so excited to be on your IG Live because of your mission of helping people to understand how we can decrease endocrine disruptors in our life.
Absolutely. Your book is going to be on our website. So when people are
Thank
searching for this
you.
information,
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
majority of our audience are in some sort of fertility treatment or interested in getting pregnant. So we'll definitely have that book
Oh,
up, your book
Oh,
up,
and I
so
and I
they
will
have
and
access
I
to
will
it.
share the reel on mine and on my social media. Yeah. So, people can follow me at Fertile Nutrition. I have a website, Mind Body Nutrition. And as far as working with people individually, because I really work in the scope as a registered dietitian with medical nutrition therapy, which is
Mhm.
broader than coaching. I mean, I look at your lab and I
Yes.
look at you as an individual. I'm licensed in my state, Oregon, and several other states, but not in every state. So if somebody reaches out to me and they're in a state that I am not, I could probably find someone for them if they really, because I like to see the labs. I want to know if you've got high
Absolutely.
blood sugar, what medication. So not
Mhm.
just like diving deeper even than the book does, but I always tell people read the book first and you'll already be on your way and you might not even need me. You might not need the fertility clinic.
Mhm.
And I always used to say to Angela, I go, well, what if you don't need IVF anymore? She goes, well, that's great. Work me out of a job. It's okay because she's so committed to lifestyle, which is really, really amazing. So I hope that for your listeners, this could be a great source for them. And I have been letting people know because some patients really want to know, like, hey, I have some time and I'm going through IVF. Like, what could I do to really make sure I'm limiting my exposure? So I want to give them safe resources I'm not going to throw a lot of supplements at people. Supplements have a role, but I always say food first. That's what our chapter was, food first.
Absolutely.
Then there are some specific supplements, but some people just, well, I'll just take the supplements and forget all the other stuff, and they're not going to be that effective.
Yes.
This one is a
Yeah,
different.
this will be a great investment because I think,
I
people
think so.
spend so much time like even planning for their wedding, but they don't even spend much time planning for having a kid.
That
This
is
is so
such a
important.
good analogy. People just think a kid, I did, and I was a dietitian. I thought a kid would just happen. And then when they didn't, and there were no resources back in when this is before the internet, there was no resources. I was just like aghast. They just came out with OPKs when I was trying to get pregnant. Now we almost have too much information. We have to kind of sort through it. But you're right, people plan for the wedding for 2 years and they don't think about their pregnancy and building a healthy family. And that really, I go, the side effect is you and your partner get healthier. And what's wrong with that? And often you become better cooks. So the food tastes better. That's why my husband loves when we're doing all these recipes. Oh, practice me. Practice those recipes, and he loved it. Still loves it. So yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing all this knowledge. And I think we would love to have you back on again because the one question I didn't ask was we're running out of time, but maybe we could save it for next time. Is your food for fertility series, and then maybe share more recipes and then client stories. And
Yeah, that would be fun. We could do a part 2 and really dive into the food, and maybe I could have a little food ready and demos on some of the.
Yes.
That's a great idea because culinary medicine, that's the key. Dietitians have been doing it forever, but now we're trying to get all the medical and health world, like make it hands-on. I love it. Let's do a part 2 with food, the
Absolutely.
food for fertility part. I'm in. Let's do it. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Judy.
And then
Thank you everyone for joining.
thanks.
Have a good
Take care.
weekend.
Bye-bye.